Claudia is a leader for diversity and inclusion. She's working on unifying the U.S. Hispanic community. She's a UN special advisor, and she also is the founder of We Are All Human Foundation. So, Claudia, your experience spans the communication, marketing field to humanitarian field. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspires you to do this and why you're using your voice in this way?
I mean, there are two things that mark my life. And I think that everyone that is here, I bet you have a moment in time in your life, in your memory, that you can, like all roads lead to Rome when you started doing what you're doing and care about what you're caring. And there are two moments in my life. So, my mom and my dad were basketball players, surprised with, I'm a Mexican 6 foot tall, so it's not, but I'm a result of the ball in a way. But they had three children, and three children, and two of them died. And two of them died the same way. When they were 18 months old, they died. When they were 9 months old, they started actually going backwards. So from, we all went super fast in our growth, but from running to, walking, from walking to crawling, from crawling to backwards. And so I grew up under a microscope. Pretty much, I was the middle one, and when you have the first one and the third one, they were like all looking at when am I gonna die, and I keep on breathing, and then after birthday 3 and birthday 4, when I was like, they were like, oh my God, she was able to beat death. She's stronger than death. And I grew up thinking that I was very strong, and that everything was possible, because if I was able to beat death, I was able to beat everything. So that was a strong belief that was put on me. And also, I had that sense of well, there must be a reason. There must be a reason why you're alive, because, you should be dead. And so having that sense of there's a mission and you're stronger, and also everything is possible. So throughout my life working for, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, I was like, bring it on, mosquitoes. We're going to beat you up, whatever it is, come on. So it's a way to look at, I think, that life that has been impregnated by an important event of my life. And I think that all of us could look back at that moment that marked you to do what you do, and actually to define who you are, what you do. And I think that the second point in my life was, I was a teenager in Mexico City when a series of earthquakes happened in 1985. And literally my entire city was destroyed, or pretty much. And so every one of us had to go to the street, to one of us, not be in a building that was going to collapse, but secondly, to try to find your friends and family. And so I was in a volunteering group trying to scoop one of the streets, trying to scoop my neighborhood, and one street after the other, just checking out that there were no people left behind. And so I was the only girl, and I was the only teenager among this group of men trying to, again, sweep the streets. And so all of a sudden we were walking, and I actually heard something, or thought that I heard something, but in any event, I was like, stop! So I actually just screamed out loud, and there was all this noise and the ambulance and the smoke, and it was so confusing. So there was this one guy that turned around and said what? And I said I think I heard a voice. And he was like, you think, or you heard a voice? This is damn important, there's a difference between what you're doing, and this is seconds. And I was like, stop! So I just kept on screaming, and he came, and in that moment it was clear there was someone, and so both of us looked around and stop. So we started actually screaming out loud, and everybody came back, and we had 10 people, and then we had 20 people, and we were able to push. And after hours and hours of pushing that big wall that fell on there was that girl. There she was, with her eyelashes full of dust, and just looking at me saying you got me, right? And it was the first time in my life that I felt useful. But also, it was the first time in my life that it made sense. My entire life, my father was like, oh my God, you're so loud, you're so loud, you're so loud. It was the first time it made sense. I was born to be loud. And I was born to actually bring attention to issues that people didn't see. And people that, I've been blessed to actually work my entire life doing just that. Working in UNICEF, the World Economic Forum, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, the United Nations, working on the Sustainable Development Goals, making sure that people see things that are worth, see things that they should volunteer for, donate for, like be aware of. So I think that it's so important that you're so clear about who you are and embrace it as opposed to deny it, and use it as, like in ways in which, like I admire so much what you're doing. It's like, I'm an artist and I actually don't care so much about so many other things, but I'm going to do the things that I care about, which is audio and music and helping other people. So I think that when you find that, it is a great gift that you not only give to yourself, but to give to others.
Thank you, Claudia. So We Are All Human Foundation. Tell us a little bit more, and tell us how you're trying to overcome division and in a world that's divided.
So I'm an absolute optimist. I'm like been working. I think that I met Nancy, and the reason why we started, and I probably am here, is because I was working in the 38th floor of the United Nations in my previous work, working to launch the Sustainable Development Goals. And so when you look at the world on that, like perspective, and you look at data, you have to say the world is making progress. Even if you're bombarded by negativity all day long by the news and telling you there is no better time for a girl to be born today. There is no, if you're a baby girl flying in the sky, waiting to see when do I born, there is no cave, middle age, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or today that has more opportunities for you to have education, to have the rights to vote, to have the rights to choose, to have electricity, to have health, to have everything, except that climate change is beating us, but also that divisive language is getting traction. And it actually has that horrendous corrosive power to stop the progress that we're doing if you start believing that the world is, like that you belong to a world where others do not exist. And technology, sadly, is, to some degree, algorithms are siloing people and bubbling you. And you're like, I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to hear so that you can keep engaged in my platform. And then when you come out of that bubble, you're like, who's that? Like someone that thinks different than me. That's another. That's the other. And we don't belong to the same human family, and therefore you don't have the same rights than me to have access to education or other things. I think that the work of World Human is just to remind all of us just about that same principle. Exercise the muscle of understanding that we belong to the same human family. That if there would be an earthquake, the one that I experienced, there would be no distinction whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. There would be no distinction if you're a woman or a man, if you're a receptionist or a CEO. There's no distinction, because that's actually how humanity is built. All of us belong to the same human family. And it is super important that we create platforms to remind people about that commonality, about seeing people by people. If you are able to actually escape your bubble and actually leave that place to see what the others are seeing, it's a great exercise to have. Particularly for me, when I moved to America 5 years ago, understanding that I was a Hispanic. I never knew that I was a Hispanic. I lived my entire life thinking that I was a happy Mexican until I moved to America. And I was like, oh my God, this group called Hispanics. And when I looked at the numbers, being a marketer as I am, I was like, this is awesome. Like I've been living in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland for 25 years and so on. I had no idea what it meant to be part of a majority outside Mexico. I always was a minority. Every time I got into any room, having any discussions, I absolutely saw the imaginary pineapple growing in my head in front of the people that were listening. And regardless of what I was saying, they were like Roomba, like I was the first ever, most exotic person that I ever saw in their life. And I was moving to America, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to belong to this group of 60 million people, 18% of the population, 12% of the GDP. When I come into the door of America, they're going to say, thank you, Hispanic. You're paying for our taxes, our social security number. This is awesome. But actually, it didn't feel that majority. It felt pretty minority, particularly in migration. And I was like, oh my God, but I'm the youth. I'm, like we belong to this group. And so putting that humanity, we're all human, to understand minorities and cultures that are actually part of the social tissue of a nation so rich as America, if we don't understand that America is made of stars and Hispanics are one of them, shame on me. Shame on me not using the talent and the skills that I've been, like learning over the 25 years and all the experience I have globally, not to put in my community, particularly because I married an American and I'm fried, right? Like I'm staying here and I have Hispanic kids that are going to make half of the salary just because I made my choice of marrying him. So I think that we're all human is about like diversity and inclusion, advancing equity, but pretty focused right now on making sure that we understand, like that diversity is a richness and that we are, and that we are bringing all those colors to America to make it bigger and better and bolder. Because actually, I have to tell you, the world is more is browner, more feminine, and with a bigger heart than what we want to accept. So it is a matter of actually catching up as opposed to course correcting. So I think that that's where the business of World Human is all about.
Great. So we're here talking about trust and peace. And peace, as you know, is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the challenges that we see is that people see them as unattainable or lofty goals. And I just wanted to see how you thought about that and how we can build more trust in the SDGs and getting people to come on board.
I mean, both trust and peace are not goals, but they are fundamental to the 17 goals. I think that without trust, you can't actually achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. One of the things that we said, we have the Global Goals Cast, which is the podcast of the Sustainable Development Goals, which we want to capture the audience to understand who are the champions making a difference. And if you have to choose between one and the other, how are you, like one company or the other, how do you know who has a big heart and aligns with you? It was one of the most fundamental things. Is like consumers are buying with their beliefs and voters are buying with their, and people are voting with their hearts. So unless you are game with what they care about, you're going to be out of business pretty soon, because 66% of millennials in America are actually making their choices on their beliefs, on what they want, on what, what aligns with their values. So trust is fundamental, because the consumers are there, the young people care about purpose, and you cannot actually build your business and grow if you don't have actually like a very clear mindset on what you want to achieve. And the Sustainable Development Goals are an incredible framework, but they can help build trust, but they cannot actually be achieved without trust. And having a brand democracy nowadays, I'm married, like my husband, and I think that trust is a very important thing in my home. My husband runs the Edelman Trust Barometer, and we see trust eroding every day more based on the expectations that people are not fulfilling, because they just don't see that there is, there's equity going in the world. I think that inequality is one of the biggest trust eroders on the last 20 years. And I think that this is something that companies have to take very seriously. Consumers want companies to step up and actually do something about it, and CEOs to speak about it. So having, like Nancy, having the blessing of having a CEO that cares so much and is all about it gives you a competitive advantage, but probably it gives you as well a sense of like, I'm working in the right place.
Great. And finally, we're coming to the end of 2019. It's coming quite quickly. What do you think has been one of your key learnings from the year that you're going to take into next year?
I think that having learned, I am so excited by 2020. It's a year for elections. And I want everybody to go and vote and take the census and participate. And I'm super excited that we just launched yesterday. We were in the United Nations having 2 days, 600 of the, like every Hispanic leader was together trying to unify under a shared agenda. And we launched yesterday, and I'm happy to share with you. So, like the Hispanic community is powerful, 60 million, but we don't feel powerful because everybody's so fragmented in their own bubbles. So the Cubans don't talk to the Mexicans, don't talk to the Venezuelans, don't talk to this. And actually, it's even worse. The Cubans of Miami, the one that took to the Cubans of Chicago, and God bless, they wouldn't mix with the Cubans of Los Angeles. And so all of that is so bananas, that is so fragmenting us that we think small, but we're big. And we think, and we operate weak. Well, we're powerful. So what we thought is we had a multi-million-dollar donation, and I'm fishing for more, of course, of of a creative agency, so that we can create a symbol to unify Hispanics. The way that rainbow is for the LGBTQ, and you just see it, and you can actually be it or you can support it. We just launched a symbol for the Hispanic community that is a Hispanic star. So it's based on the American flag, taking the star, but chopping the tip and then just adding the N for Espanol and for in Portuguese, so that it doesn't matter where you are and what you do. So I hope that actually for next year we can see that as a symbol that's similar to the SDG that a lot of people are wearing here. It signifies, and I was part of the creation of that as well, that signifies the best of humanity. We can see that as the Hispanic community, as a symbol of unification and pride.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you so much for having me.